All that was left of Adrian's once mighty fortune fit inside a single battered suitcase. He stood at the bus station, leaning against a cold metal bench, staring at the half-torn advertisement pinned to a dusty notice board. It was a picture of his former self photo used in a charity fundraiser from years ago. In it, Adrian wore a tailored suit, gold cufflinks, and that proud smile that used to make headlines in financial magazines. The photo mocked him now. He had sold his mansion, his luxury cars, and even that rare watch he used to boast about. He was left with nothing but a handful of clothes and a wallet with no more than a few bills. His eyes burned from the tears he fought to hide. He reached into the inside pocket of his worn-out jacket and pulled out a single photograph. It was of Naomi, the woman who had come into his life under a contract. She was smiling at him in the picture. He remembered that day so well. Her eyes sparkled with an emotion he once believed was genuine. He remembered how she kissed him each morning without fail, how she greeted him with a loving smile that always seemed real. But then, she vanished without a trace, leaving him desperate and lost. Even worse, rumors flooded his life, revealing she might have orchestrated his downfall. She had not only vanished from his arms, but also from his heart, leaving an ache he could still feel in every breath. Adrian had once sat at the top of the business world, but here he was, in the cold, waiting for a bus. The wind whipped against his face, stinging his cheeks, but he did not move from that spot. He closed his eyes and tried to breathe through the bitterness. He wondered if he would ever see Naomi again, if he would ever find the truth behind her disappearance, or if he would be able to confront the ugly secrets that tore them apart. At this moment, the only truth he knew was that he was alone, broke, and haunted by a past he could not change. He turned back to the torn advertisement. The edges flapped in the wind, as though taunting him with the life he used to have. Adrian clenched his jaw. The sting of betrayal cut deeper than any business deal gone wrong. He wondered how it was possible that a woman he had hired, someone he had never planned to love, had shattered him so completely. Then he heard the sound of an approaching bus, and he tightened his grip on the suitcase. He had nowhere to go, but at least he could leave the station. Before stepping onto the bus, he glanced at the photo of Naomi one last time. He felt a wave of memories crash over him. That was when it all began, he recalled. The contract, the daily kisses, the slow slide into jealousy, the avalanche of trouble that no amount of money could stop. He boarded the bus, closed his eyes, and let his mind travel back to the moment he first laid eyes on her. That was before everything went wrong, before the racist whispers, before the heartbreak, and before every door he once opened so easily had been slammed shut in his face. 3 years earlier, Adrian Rivers was one of the richest men on the West Coast. He was the son of a wealthy real estate developer. By age 30, he had turned his inheritance into a vast empire of hotels, tech companies, and restaurants. He had it all: money, power, and a reputation that could open any door. But for the sake of saving face with his family and business partners, Adrian needed a wife. Or rather, he needed the image of a stable marriage. His mother used to nag him every day, hinting that it was time to settle down. His board of directors believed a more grounded personal life would help him secure bigger deals. He had no interest in relationships. Dating bored him, and serious commitments felt like a waste of time. The only solution was a contractual arrangement with a woman who would be his wife in name and help him keep up appearances. That was when Naomi Winter came into the picture. She was not the typical socialite that Adrian's world was used to. She was a smart, quiet, and stunning African-American woman with deep brown eyes that observed everything around her. She worked as a freelance journalist, writing pieces on race relations and social injustice. Adrian's mother had tried to set him up with several women from wealthy circles. But Adrian did not want the headache of merging fortunes or dealing with families that sought advantage from his wealth. He wanted someone who would not complicate his life. He met Naomi at a charity event. She was covering the event for a local publication and asked if she could interview him. The conversation was surprisingly pleasant. Adrian found himself laughing, being honest, and even admiring how her eyes lit up when she talked about her ideals and beliefs. The next day, he asked his assistant to invite her for lunch. When she arrived, she carried a small notepad and a pen, thinking it was another interview. Instead, Adrian offered her a contract. Be my wife for 2 years, live in my mansion, appear in public events, and in return, he would pay her an amount so large that she could secure her future and her family's future. She was shocked. She thought it was a joke. But Adrian was not joking. He had laid out everything in a clear manner. No real emotions, no strings attached, just a simple arrangement. Naomi read the document, and she felt a knot in her stomach. She was hesitant, but her mother had fallen ill and needed medical care that cost more than Naomi could afford. The money Adrian offered was enough to pay the medical bills and keep her family safe for years. After a few sleepless nights, Naomi agreed. They were married in a small civil ceremony. A few tabloids caught wind of the event, but it barely caused a stir. Adrian told the press that he had decided to keep things quiet to avoid unnecessary attention. The real reason was that he wanted to keep the contract private and protect his business interests. Naomi wore a simple wedding dress and carried a bouquet of white flowers. Adrian did not smile much that day. He wanted to get it over with. Naomi, however, could not hide her nerves. She worried that she was selling her life for money. She told herself it was only for 2 years, and that her mother's health came first. On that day, there was a brief moment when Adrian looked at Naomi and thought that she might be more than a contract wife. But he ignored the feeling and told himself this was just a deal. Once the ceremony ended, they returned to Adrian's mansion. A cold wind blew across the front steps as Naomi entered her new home. She had never seen such a large place before. It was like a palace with marble floors, golden chandeliers, and walls lined with expensive paintings. Servants stood in a row, greeting them with polite bows. Naomi felt her heart race. This was her new life. This was the path she had chosen. The next few weeks were a blur. Naomi tried to blend into Adrian's world. She attended his business dinners, dressed in outfits chosen by Adrian's personal stylist. She learned to smile, nod, and avoid the deep questions about the nature of their marriage. Nobody seemed to suspect anything at first. After all, a billionaire marrying a woman from a different background was not unusual. But then, the whispers began. Some of Adrian's partners disliked the idea of a black woman by his side. They did not say it openly at first, but Naomi saw it in their eyes. Sometimes they would speak over her as though she did not exist. Other times they would make offhand remarks like, "Oh, she's your wife?" with a certain sneer that told her they did not respect her. Adrian noticed but did nothing at first. He believed it would all blow over. He was not a racist, and he told himself that the only thing that mattered was the contract. Naomi was hurt, but she tried to focus on the money and her mother's treatment. She told herself to keep her head down and endure it. One evening, Naomi was getting ready for a gala. She wore a beautiful ivory gown. Her hair was pinned up, and she wore a simple necklace of pearls. Adrian stepped into her room to see if she was ready. He paused, staring at her reflection in the mirror. In that moment, something in him shifted. He realized Naomi was more than just an arrangement. She was a person with feelings, a woman with quiet strength. For the first time, he saw how she had been tolerating the underhanded comments and the prejudice from his circle. He saw the pain in her eyes that she tried to hide behind a polite smile. At the gala that night, one of Adrian's biggest investors, a powerful older man named Mr. Crowley, made an insulting remark about Naomi's background. Naomi's face fell, and she tried to walk away in tears. Adrian, who usually shrugged off such behavior to avoid trouble, suddenly felt a surge of anger. He confronted Mr. Crowley and told him in a cold, even tone that such disrespect would not be tolerated. The crowd fell silent. Mr. Crowley, insulted by the challenge, stormed out. Naomi stood by the side, shocked. Adrian took her by the hand and led her out of the gala. He did not say anything on the drive home, but he gripped the steering wheel with tension. He felt protective, something he had never expected to feel for a woman he had married on paper. Naomi silently wept into a tissue. She did not want to cause a scene or ruin his business relationships. But for the first time, she felt that Adrian was actually looking out for her. By the second month of their marriage, a strange ritual began. "Hello, wonderful friends and followers. I'm reaching out because I have a big goal in mind, hitting 1,000 subscribers. It's a milestone that will help our community grow and allow me to share more exciting content with you. Every single subscriber makes a huge difference and brings me one step closer to achieving this dream." It started as a small joke. One morning at breakfast, Adrian leaned over and gave Naomi a peck on the cheek, as though fulfilling some husbandly duty. Naomi laughed and teased him, asking if he could do better. Adrian, feeling oddly playful, kissed her softly on the lips. It was a gentle, warm kiss that lasted only a moment, but it left them both blushing. The next day, Naomi gave Adrian a kiss before he left for work. She placed her hands on his shoulders and pressed her lips against his for a second longer than necessary. The staff in the house pretended not to notice, but Adrian's cheeks turned pink, and he walked out the door with a rare, genuine smile. This became a habit. Each morning, Adrian would kiss Naomi before heading off to work. It became a sweet routine that made them feel awkward at first, then more comfortable. Eventually, it felt natural. It was their little tradition, something neither had expected in a fake marriage. Slowly, these daily kisses started to chip away at the wall Adrian had built around his heart. Naomi sensed it too. She tried to deny the warmth she felt, but it was there, and it was real. Whenever Adrian returned from the office, Naomi would greet him with another kiss, a softer one, accompanied by a question like, "How was your day?" She would listen to him complain about a business meeting, about real estate deals going south, or about the stress of being a billionaire. Adrian, who had never shared his burdens, found himself talking to her as if she were a true partner. In time, these small gestures drew them closer. They started to have late-night talks about life, about Naomi's mother's health, and about Adrian's childhood. Naomi learned that Adrian's father had been strict, always demanding the best. Adrian had to live up to a certain image, never showing weakness. Naomi, in turn, spoke about her struggles growing up in a neighborhood that was looked down upon by richer folks. She talked about the racism she faced from teachers who did not believe in her talents. Adrian felt ashamed to see how some of his own associates seemed to fit the mold of those who judged Naomi without knowing her. It was during this time that jealousy began to simmer among those in Adrian's circle. They noticed how protective he was becoming of Naomi. Some employees gossiped in hushed voices. Adrian's mother, who had once liked Naomi, began to worry that her son was getting too attached to a woman who did not come from a wealthy or influential family. She had believed the contract marriage was a good idea to keep appearances, not to cause a genuine bond. The more Adrian showed public affection for Naomi, the more the gossip grew. The racism that Naomi faced in Adrian's circle was not always loud or obvious. It was subtle but cut deep. Sometimes it was a slow burn, like how certain guests at dinner parties would ignore her. Other times, it was more direct, like when one of Adrian's old classmates made a passing joke about the color of her skin. Adrian grew furious every time he witnessed such cruelty, but he could not control everyone's thoughts. Naomi tried to be strong, but each incident left a new bruise on her soul. There were also people who thought Naomi had married Adrian for his money, ignoring that this was exactly the arrangement they had, but with the twist that real feelings were blossoming behind the scenes. Whispers started to spread that she was a gold digger, that she was taking advantage of Adrian's kindness. Some said she was using racial politics to gain sympathy. Naomi felt her heart sink every time she heard such words. She also noticed that Adrian was starting to lose business deals because of the friction with certain bigoted investors who did not want to support a man whose wife did not match their idea of an acceptable partner. Over dinner one night, Adrian's mother confronted Naomi. She told her bluntly that she did not think Naomi was a good match for Adrian's image. The older woman stopped short of using offensive language but said enough to make Naomi feel small. Adrian was out of town on business, so Naomi was left alone. She did not raise her voice. She listened, nodded, and realized that even Adrian's mother, who had seemed supportive in the beginning, was part of the same system that judged Naomi without fully understanding her. That night, Naomi cried in her room. She felt trapped. She had entered into this contract for money, but along the way, she had grown to care for Adrian. Yet every new insult or slight reminded her that she was still an outsider in his world. She doubted her place in his life. She worried that her presence was hurting Adrian's reputation, that she was causing him to lose deals and respect. She wondered if she should leave, but she also remembered her mother's hospital bills. When Adrian returned the next day, he found Naomi distant and cold. She told him she wanted to end the contract early. He looked stunned, his eyes full of confusion. She did not tell him about his mother's cruel words. She only said she did not see a reason to continue. Adrian, fearing he was losing someone he cared about more than he ever expected, begged her to stay. He told her that they had signed a deal, but that was not the real reason. He confessed he needed her. Naomi looked into his eyes and saw genuine fear and sorrow. She sighed and agreed to stay, at least for now. As time passed, what started as simple daily kisses grew into deeper affection. Adrian would wake in the middle of the night, troubled by nightmares of failing his father's legacy, only to find Naomi by his side, whispering words of comfort. She would place a hand on his arm, and he felt a calm he had never known. He found himself grateful for her presence, her empathy, her willingness to share in his burdens. They began spending weekends at a beach house, away from the prying eyes of the city. They would walk along the shore, hand in hand, talking about everything and nothing. Adrian would kiss Naomi under the sunset, the sound of waves crashing behind them. At night, they would sit by a fire, wrapped in blankets, talking about their hopes. Naomi hoped for a day when racism would not keep people like her on the outside. Adrian hoped to break free from the chains of his father's expectations. They laughed at silly jokes, cooked simple meals together, and spent hours just looking at the stars. Adrian's mother noticed the change in her son's behavior. He looked happier, more alive. But she also saw that some investors were pulling out. She blamed Naomi's presence, calling it a distraction. Adrian refused to hear it. He was well aware that prejudice was at play, and he no longer cared to please those who refused to accept his wife. Although the contract was still in effect, Adrian's feelings had clearly moved beyond that piece of paper. Naomi, too, found herself falling in love in a way she never thought possible. But not everyone in Adrian's business empire was pleased. His financial advisor, a man named Roger, began to stir trouble. Roger had been close to Adrian's father and was used to a certain way of doing things. He had ambitious plans to expand the empire, and he wanted Adrian to avoid any scandal or controversy. Roger tried to talk Adrian into divorcing Naomi, offering to find him a more suitable match. Adrian refused. Roger, frustrated, started to manipulate the company's finances, hoping to create a scenario that would force Adrian to separate from Naomi to save face and money. Unbeknownst to Adrian, Roger was forging documents and signing risky deals on Adrian's behalf. Though Adrian was beginning to lose some investors, new opportunities did arise, especially from those who admired his stand against racism. Naomi's presence also drew attention from social justice groups, who saw Adrian as a progressive figure in a largely old-fashioned business world. These new alliances looked promising, but the battles with bigoted investors drained Adrian's energy. He tried to lean on Naomi for support, and she gave him all she could. Still, tension brewed, and rumors spread that Naomi was the reason behind Adrian's recent stress. Each morning, Naomi still kissed Adrian, but the tenderness in those kisses was shadowed by worry. She felt guilty for the troubles that had come to Adrian's doorstep. Adrian tried to reassure her that none of this was her fault. Yet the pressure continued to climb. Some board members began to question if Adrian was fit to lead the company. They murmured about mismanagement, pointing out the lost deals. They blamed it on personal distractions. Under the surface, there was envy too. Some of Adrian's associates wanted to see him fail. They resented his wealth, his power, and even the genuine love he had found. There were whispers that Naomi was playing Adrian for a fool, that she would one day walk away with half his empire. But no one knew that Naomi had signed a prenuptial agreement that left her with a set amount of money from the contract. She was not after the empire. She only wanted a future free from the worry of medical bills, and a life where she could write and stand for the causes she believed in. Jealousy sprang up in others when they saw how Adrian and Naomi interacted. Their public kisses were gentle, respectful, and filled with a sense of real connection. Many who saw them realized there was more to this marriage than an arrangement. But that realization only fueled the envy of those who disliked seeing Adrian happy. The tension grew, and with it came more gossip. Naomi tried to ignore it, burying herself in volunteer work. Adrian tried to keep the business afloat, trusting Roger to handle certain investments. An unexpected crisis hit the company 6 months into their marriage. A major tech investment that Roger had championed turned out to be a scam. Millions vanished overnight. Adrian was stunned. He called an emergency board meeting. Roger insisted it was just a minor setback, but the board was furious. Adrian demanded to see the contract details. Roger fumbled with explanations, but it was clear that corners were cut, documents were falsified. Adrian realized he might face legal charges if the blame fell on him. He fired Roger on the spot, but the damage was done. News of the scam leaked to the media. Adrian's reputation took a massive hit. Investors started pulling out of other deals. His once unshakable empire was on unstable ground. Naomi tried to comfort him, telling him they would face the challenge together. But each day, new disasters surfaced. Roger had left behind a trail of reckless decisions. Adrian spent all his time in meetings with lawyers, accountants, and crisis managers, desperately trying to save the company. Under this stress, Adrian's temper grew short. He found himself snapping at Naomi for small things. He hated himself for it, but he could not control the frustration building inside. Naomi tried to support him, but he began to push her away, as though he blamed her for the investor backlash. Dark circles formed under his eyes. Their morning kisses became rushed. Their late-night talks were now short arguments about trivial matters. The love that had blossomed between them was overshadowed by business chaos and personal doubt. Adding to the pain, racism still lurked in the shadows. Some of Adrian's rivals used hateful rhetoric, saying he had chosen a wife who was incompatible with his circle. They implied that she was the reason for his downfall. Adrian knew these claims were baseless, but in his exhausted state, he sometimes flinched under the weight of it all. One night, Naomi found Adrian sitting in the dark in his study. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. He turned to her, eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and anger. He asked her, "Are you happy with the mess we're in?" It was a cruel question, and he regretted it the moment the words left his mouth. Naomi's face paled. She stepped back, tears filling her eyes. She whispered, "I never wanted any of this. I'm sorry." Then she left the room. Adrian wanted to call her back, to apologize, but pride trapped the words in his throat. Over the following weeks, Adrian scrambled to salvage his remaining businesses. Banks withdrew their support. Lawsuits piled up. He had to sell some of his properties, including the beach house he and Naomi loved. In desperation, he reached out to an old family friend for a loan. But that friend refused, citing the situation with your wife. Each rejection cut deeper. Naomi, meanwhile, realized her contract would end in a few more months. She was torn about what to do. She loved Adrian, but their relationship had become strained. She was tired of the racism, the cold stares, the constant feeling that she did not belong. And she worried that staying by Adrian's side might continue to hurt him in a world that refused to accept her. Amidst this turmoil, Adrian's mother visited the mansion. She found Naomi alone in the kitchen, making tea. The older woman gave her a long, pointed look. Then she spoke in a low voice. "My son is losing everything. He is stressed and angry. He cannot see straight. If you care about him, you will leave. Stop clinging to a contract that is ruining him." Naomi stood there, speechless, tears brimming in her eyes. She wanted to shout that she was not clinging to money, that she truly cared about him. But the older woman's words cut like a knife. Naomi remembered how Adrian had snapped at her recently, how he seemed to resent everything in his life. Perhaps leaving would be the best way to free him. Later that night, Naomi saw how tired and broken Adrian looked. He was going over documents in his office, trying to find a path out of financial ruin. She brought him dinner, but he barely touched it. She wanted to wrap her arms around him, to tell him she would stand by him forever. But she also remembered the contract was only for 2 years. She knew that money had started this marriage, but love was what kept her in it. Yet the world around them did not care about love. It only saw differences in skin color, class, and background. One morning, Adrian woke up and reached for Naomi's side of the bed. It was empty. He rose quickly, searching the house, but could not find her. Her closet was half empty. Some clothes remained, but the essentials were gone. It did not look like she had cleaned out her things. It felt as though she left in a hurry. Adrian's heart pounded. He called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He checked with the staff, who said they saw her leave early with a suitcase, looking upset. Adrian felt a flood of panic. He drove around the city, thinking she might be at her old apartment, but the landlord said she had ended her lease months ago. He asked her friends, but they had not heard from her. It was as though she had disappeared entirely. Adrian returned home and found a note in their bedroom. In neat handwriting, Naomi wrote, "I am sorry. I cannot watch you lose everything because of me. I cannot stand to see how our love is questioned by the hateful eyes around us. I will always be grateful for the kindness you showed me and for the love you gave, even if it was unexpected. There is no need to find me. I only ask that you remember me for who I truly am, not what others said about me." Adrian sank to the floor, clutching the note. Tears streamed down his face. He felt an ache so deep he could not describe it. He thought about the daily kisses, the nights spent talking by the fire, the gentle touch of her hand on his shoulder. All of it vanished like a dream. He pressed the note to his chest, realizing how much he needed her, how much he truly loved her. Yet Naomi was gone, and in the days that followed, Adrian learned that some of his remaining assets had been seized by the bank. Without Naomi's presence, he found no comfort. His despair grew, clouding his ability to make good decisions. The final blow came when a string of lawsuits forced him to declare bankruptcy. He lost his mansion, his company, everything. Rumors swirled that Naomi had stolen his money, that she had set him up. But Adrian refused to believe it. He knew her heart. She would never do such a thing. Still, the rumor spread, and soon the world believed Naomi had left him broke. Adrian did not have the strength to fight back against every rumor. He only knew the pain in his heart and the emptiness in his home. All that remained for Adrian was a small property far outside the city. He sold most of his valuables to pay off debts. The once glamorous billionaire was now an ordinary man. avoided by former friends who no longer found him useful. Adrian's mother, feeling guilty, tried to console him, but her words felt hollow. She knew she had pushed Naomi away, and she saw the cost of her prejudice. Adrian could not bring himself to hate his mother, but he kept a cold distance. Days turned into weeks. Adrian searched for Naomi, even hiring a private detective, but the detective found no trace of her. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Adrian suspected she had done this on purpose, to protect him or maybe to find a simpler life. Still, he could not shake the feeling that something was missing, that he had not uncovered the full truth. He clung to the memories of their time together, the morning kisses, the shared laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about justice. He remembered how she endured insults because of her race and how she tried to keep smiling. He realized that he should have done more to defend her, to protect her from the vicious world that surrounded them. Each night, he regretted the harsh words he had spoken to her when he was under pressure. He wished he could take them back. At first, Adrian thought he would find a way to rebuild his empire. But without Naomi, he found no motivation. He sold the last of his stocks and took a job as a consultant for a small firm. His skills were still valuable, but he worked in a modest office, far from the penthouse suite he used to occupy. He lived alone in a small rental, always looking over his shoulder, half expecting Naomi to appear. One afternoon, a mysterious envelope arrived in the mail. There was no return address. Adrian's heart skipped as he recognized Naomi's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Adrian, I know by now you have lost much. I never wanted that for you. Please believe me. I left so the world would stop judging us, so you could focus on saving what you had built. I hoped that my absence would ease some of the burden. I was wrong to think I could solve anything by leaving. I must tell you the truth. Someone close to you offered me money to walk away. I refused. But then they threatened to ruin me, to hurt my family. I could not bear to see you dragged down in this ugly fight, so I left on my own terms. I did not take a cent from you. In fact, I sent back the rest of the contract money to your business account when I left. It was never about the money anymore. By the time I realized you meant more to me than my own pride, it was too late. I will always love you, Adrian, but my presence caused you too much pain. Perhaps one day the world will be kinder and we can meet again without fear. For now, I stay away. Please do not look for me. Live well. Yours forever, Naomi." Adrian felt tears pool in his eyes. He checked his business account records from the time she left. Indeed, there was a deposit matching the contract's remainder. She had returned all the money. The rumors that she had stolen his fortune were lies. His chest tightened at the thought that Naomi had been threatened, forced away. He suspected it might have been Roger or even his own mother who had made life so miserable for Naomi. He stared at the letter, reading it over and over. The note did not give any clue about where she was. He ached to see her, to tell her that he did not blame her and that he wished she had stayed. He closed his eyes, recalling the moment she left. Perhaps if he had shown more care, she would not have felt so alone. Months turned into a year. Adrian slowly adjusted to his new life. He had little money, but he found peace in living simply. He volunteered at local shelters, thinking Naomi would have liked that. He spent evenings reading books on race relations and equality, wanting to understand her world better. He no longer cared about the opinions of those who had once been his business allies. He cared only about making amends, somehow. The search for Naomi went on. Adrian wrote letters to old friends of hers, asked anyone who might have crossed her path. He hit dead end after dead end. But one evening, he received a phone call from a blocked number. He answered, his heart pounding, hoping it was Naomi. Instead, a woman with a polite voice said, "If you want to know the truth about Naomi's disappearance, come to the old pier at midnight." Adrian felt a chill run through him. He arrived at the pier, heart thudding. The night sky was cloudy, and the wind smelled of salt and decay. He waited in the darkness, scanning every shadow for movement. After several long minutes, a hooded figure appeared. The figure tossed an envelope at his feet and ran before he could speak. Adrian picked up the envelope. Inside were photographs. Some showed Naomi meeting with a stranger in a dark cafe, another showed them exchanging a piece of paper. The final photo showed Naomi crying, while the stranger placed a hand on her shoulder. Adrian noticed the stranger was Roger. Enraged, Adrian realized Roger must have blackmailed Naomi, forcing her to flee. In that moment, Adrian felt a wave of both relief and fear. Relief, because these photos confirmed Naomi had not betrayed him. Fear, because it meant powerful people had threatened her, and they might still be looking for her. He turned the photos over, searching for clues. On the back of one, there was a scrawled address in the corner. It belonged to a small town hundreds of miles away. Adrian's pulse raced. Was this where Naomi might be hiding? He stuffed the pictures back into the envelope, looking around to see if anyone was watching. The pier was empty, silent except for the sound of waves lapping against the wooden posts. Adrian hurried back to his small apartment. He laid out the photographs and studied them for hours. The address must be important. Maybe that was Naomi's refuge. He felt hope surging for the first time in a long while. He grabbed his car keys, deciding to drive there that very night. But as he reached the door, he paused. His entire body trembled with uncertainty. What if this was a trap? What if Naomi did not want to be found? The last thing he wanted was to put her in danger again. He thought back to her letter, how she asked him not to look for her. But he also knew the threat she faced was real. Perhaps this address was a cry for help. He stood in front of the door, torn between his desire to see her and his fear of causing more harm. Outside, the streetlight flickered, casting shifting shadows on the pavement. Adrian gripped the doorknob, heart pounding like a drum. He whispered to himself, I have to find her. I owe her that much. He opened the door and stepped out into the cold night air. The photograph in his hand fluttered in the breeze, showing Naomi's tearful face. Adrian's mind raced with questions. Would she be there? Would she forgive him? Was she in danger? Would he lose her again? The only thing he knew for sure was that his life had changed forever. He was no longer the arrogant billionaire who cared only for wealth and image. He was a man stripped of everything, fueled by a love he once thought impossible. He shut the door of his apartment behind him, got into his car, and started the engine. The headlights cut through the darkness as he drove off, leaving the dimly lit street behind. His hands shook on the steering wheel. The suspense of not knowing what awaited him at the end of this journey was almost unbearable. Yet, he pressed forward, driven by a single hope, that somehow he would hold Naomi in his arms again and tell her that the world's cruelty could not stand in the way of their love. Ahead lay miles of unknown roads, scattered with the shadows of a past he could not forget. The deeper he drove into the night, the more certain he became of one truth. He would keep searching for Naomi until his last breath, no matter the cost. And as the city lights faded in his rearview mirror, the envelope on the passenger seat seemed to whisper secrets he was still afraid to discover. Suspense lingered, heavy as a thundercloud. Where was Naomi? Would Adrian find her? Or would some other force intervene and keep them apart? The questions burned in Adrian's mind as he drove into the darkness, clutching hope like a lifeline. In that haze of uncertainty, one thing remained clear. Love, once awakened, refused to die quietly. Adrian's heart pounded as he drove away from the city lights. The address on the back of the photograph guided him toward a remote town on the outskirts of the state. He had never heard of it before, but he entered the name into his old, outdated GPS. The device sputtered and gave him a blinking red route. He glanced at the envelope on the passenger seat. Inside were the photos of Naomi meeting with Roger. Each time he thought about Roger's betrayal, a bitter taste formed in his mouth. Highway after highway, Adrian pressed down on the gas pedal. The road seemed darker than usual. Guilt and fear churned inside him. He kept remembering Naomi's letter, how she had left, so he would not lose more than he already had. He remembered the heartbreak in her eyes the night he snapped at her in the study. Regret stabbed at him now. He whispered to himself, I'm sorry, Naomi, over and over, as though each apology might travel across the distance and reach her. As the night stretched on, the traffic thinned. The headlights illuminated only an empty road and scattered signs. Adrian had no plan other than to show up at the address and hope it led him to Naomi. He was not even sure if she was there. This might be a trick or a clue left behind by the hooded figure at the pier. Either way, Adrian knew he could not go back to his lonely apartment. There was nothing left for him in the city, but painful memories and broken business ties. The car radio crackled with static. He tried to find music to calm his nerves, but only managed to pick up faint talk shows. He finally switched the radio off, preferring the hush of the open road. His mind drifted to the day he and Naomi signed that absurd contract. He had thought it was a brilliant idea, no mess, no real commitment, just a facade. But then daily kisses had become part of their routine, and somewhere between the quiet moments at the beach house and the late-night talks by the fireplace, they had fallen in love. He could still see the hurt in her eyes whenever someone slighted her because of her race. He had tried to shield her, but maybe he had not done enough. Maybe the world they lived in was too cruel to allow their simple dream. But no matter how cruel the world was, Adrian refused to let Naomi vanish from his life forever. The road took him over a narrow bridge. A sign read, Riverfield County Line. Adrian realized he was getting close. His hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from the chill in the air, but from the weight of what might happen next. If Naomi was here, would she even want to see him? Would she believe he still loved her, even after losing everything? As dawn approached, Adrian spotted a small gas station up ahead, the only light in an otherwise dark stretch. He pulled over, stepping out into the crisp morning air. The station was old, with peeling paint and flickering fluorescent lights. An elderly clerk stood behind the counter, eyeing him warily. "Morning," Adrian said, sliding a few bills across the counter. "Can I fill up?" The clerk nodded. "Cash only. Card readers down." Adrian paid in cash, then walked outside to pump fuel. He could see the faint glow of sunrise on the horizon. For a moment, he felt a surge of hope. He was close to the address, maybe less than an hour away. If Naomi was here, he might be watching the same sunrise she was. "Thank you," Adrian said when he finished, giving a polite nod to the clerk. He got back in his car and continued on the lonely road, the first rays of dawn lighting the path ahead. Adrian followed the GPS directions until it led him to a small town with one main street. The place looked like it belonged to a different era wooden porches, a local diner with a flickering neon sign, and a quiet stillness. He made a turn down a gravel road that led to the address scrawled on the photograph. A weathered sign read Rosewood Inn. It was a modest, single-story motel made of fading brick. He parked his car outside the main office. The windows were dusty and a solitary light bulb hung above the door. There was no movement inside except for a flickering lamp. Adrian took a deep breath and pushed open the office door. A middle-aged woman with tired eyes and frizzy hair looked up from a magazine. She set it aside slowly. "Good morning," Adrian said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I'm looking for someone." The woman eyed him warily. "We don't give out guest information, sir." Her tone was polite but firm. Adrian glanced at her name tagged Tina. He cleared his throat. "Please, she might be in trouble. Her name is Naomi. He paused, unsure if using her last name was safe. "She's a friend, an important friend." Tina's face showed no emotion. She shrugged. "We get lots of folks passing through, but nobody uses real names here anyway, not always." Desperation prickled Adrian's skin. He placed the envelope on the counter, pulling out the photograph that showed Naomi with tears in her eyes. "Have you seen this woman?" Tina's gaze flickered to the photo. Her lips parted, as though she recognized Naomi. But she quickly shook her head. "I'm sorry, I can't help you." Adrian's shoulders sagged. He sensed that Tina was hiding something. Maybe she was trying to protect Naomi from whoever might be chasing her. Adrian dug into his jacket pocket and pulled out the last of his spare cash. "I'll pay for a room," he said quietly. "At least for a few nights. Maybe she'll turn up." Tina looked at the crumpled bills. Something shifted in her eye of sympathy, perhaps. She counted the money and handed him a key. "Room 4, she said softly. "Down the hall, last door on the left." Adrian took the key and turned away, heading toward the room. Before he reached the door, Tina spoke again in a hushed voice. "Sometimes people come here to run away. If she's here, maybe she doesn't want to be found. Be careful." Adrian gave a small nod. He understood the warning, but he also knew he had to try. The motel room was small, with outdated furniture and a lingering smell of stale smoke. The bed creaked under Adrian's weight as he sat down. He noticed the peeling wallpaper, the old television on a wobbly stand. It was a far cry from the luxurious mansion he once owned, but he did not care. Right now, this room represented the closest link to Naomi he had found. He set the envelope on the nightstand and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts tumbled like loose gravel. He wondered if Naomi was in one of these rooms, or maybe staying at a hidden cottage nearby. Did she wander the streets of this town? Was she safe? Worry gnawed at him. Roger's threat still echoed in his mind. Adrian felt anger boil in his veins, wishing he had been less naive, more cautious. After hours of driving, exhaustion pulled at him, and soon he fell into a restless sleep. He dreamed of Naomi smiling, dressed in white, holding a small bouquet. But in the dream, she was crying, and he could not reach her. When he woke, his shirt was damp with sweat, and the sun outside had climbed higher in the sky. The clock on the wall showed that it was late morning. He freshened up in the tiny bathroom, splashing cold water on his face. Then he decided to search the town. He could not just sit there. With a trembling hand, he tucked Naomi's photo into his jacket locked the room, and stepped outside. The motel courtyard was empty except for a stray cat napping under a bench. Adrian quietly walked to his car, wondering where to start. Adrian started at the local diner, a cozy spot called Martha's. It was the only place in town that seemed alive. A row of pickup trucks lined the street outside. He entered, and the strong smell of coffee and bacon greeted him. A waitress with kind eyes approached. Her name tag read Sylvia. "Take a seat wherever you like," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. Adrian chose a corner booth. He felt eyes on him. He was a stranger in a small town. He ordered coffee and toast, trying to steady his nerves. When Sylvia returned with his order, Adrian mustered a gentle smile. "I'm looking for someone," he said, pulling out Naomi's photo. "Have you seen her?" Sylvia studied the photo, then shook her head. "No, I don't think so." "Hard to say." She placed the photo back on the table. "Why?" "She's a friend," Adrian said. "I have reason to believe she might be in this town. She might have checked into the Rosewood Inn or somewhere else nearby." Sylvia shrugged sympathetically. "Folks come and go. Sorry, I can't help." She glanced at him more closely. "You look tired. You sure you're okay?" Adrian thanked her for her concern and sipped his coffee. He could sense the curiosity from the other diners, but nobody offered any answers. After finishing, he left some money on the table and stepped outside. He spent the next few hours wandering from shop to shop. He showed Naomi's photo to a couple of store owners. Most shook their heads, some politely, others with annoyance at the stranger pestering them. Some gave vague answers like, "I might have seen someone like her," or "She looks familiar," but nobody gave him a definite lead. By late afternoon, Adrian found himself standing on a bridge overlooking a slow-moving river. The water below sparkled with the reflection of the setting sun. He felt a hollow ache in his chest. Had he come all this way for nothing? When Adrian returned to the Rosewood Inn, dusk was settling over the sky. He parked his car and trudged toward his room. His feet felt heavy, and worry weighed him down. But as he neared room 4, he noticed someone at the end of the corridor. A slim figure stood by a vending machine, wearing a hooded sweatshirt and jeans. Adrian paused. The figure pressed a button on the machine, and a can of soda rattled out. Something about the posture, the curve of the shoulders, made Adrian's heart skip. He took a tentative step forward, and the figure turned slightly. His heart soared. He recognized the side of her face, the shine of her hair. It was Naomi. "Naomi," he breathed, almost choking on his own voice. She froze, the can slipping from her hand and rolling on the ground. Slowly, she turned to face him. Her eyes were wide with surprise and fear. They stared at each other, silent. Adrian's heart pounded so loudly he could not hear anything else. He wanted to rush forward, to hold her, to apologize for every hurt. But Naomi lifted her hand, as if to stop him. "How?" she began, her voice trembling. He stepped closer, hands raised, showing he meant no harm. "I got a tip," he said softly, tears burning in his eyes. "Naomi, I've been searching everywhere for you." She looked thinner, tired, her cheeks hollow, as if she had not been eating well. Dark circles rimmed her eyes. She took a small step back, unsure. "You shouldn't have come." Adrian tried to keep the emotion from cracking his voice. "I had to. I love you." The words hung in the air, raw and honest. Naomi's eyes brimmed with tears. She looked torn, as if she wanted to run into his arms, but was also afraid. "Adrian, it's not safe for you to be here." He closed the distance between them, but he did not reach out. Instead, he bent his head, voice low and urgent. "Roger threatened you, didn't he? Forced you to leave. Naomi, I know the truth." She covered her face with trembling hands. "He said he'd ruin you if I stayed. I thought leaving was the only way. I never wanted you to lose everything. Now I see you lost it anyway." Adrian's chest tightened. "He's the one who ruined me, not you. I would lose everything all over again if it meant you'd stay safe." Tears spilled onto Naomi's cheeks. "I can't go back with you. People hate me for no reason. Some of your partners, they'll never accept me. I only bring you trouble." Adrian shook his head, fighting tears. "I don't care about any of them. I just want you. I'm not the billionaire I used to be. I'm just a man now. A man who loves you and needs you." Naomi stared at him for a long moment. Then she let out a shaky breath. She took a small, uncertain step forward, closing the distance between them. Adrian opened his arms, and she fell against his chest, weeping softly. He wrapped his arms around her, cradling her as if she might disappear again. He felt her heartbeat drumming against his own, the soft warmth of her body against his. She smelled of fresh tears and worn cloth, and to him it was the sweetest scent he could imagine. After a few moments, Naomi pulled back and wiped her face. "I'm sorry I left without saying goodbye. I tried to write you a letter, but it felt so cold. You deserved more." Adrian cupped her cheek. "I understand why you did it. You thought you were saving me." A lump formed in his throat. "But Naomi, I felt empty without you. Nothing mattered, money, reputation, anything." She looked into his eyes, still fearful. What now? Roger might still be out there. Adrian glanced around the quiet motel. "We'll figure it out together. First, let's get inside before someone sees us." Naomi nodded. Adrian picked up the soda can from the ground, and they walked to room 4. Once inside, he locked the door, and they both stood there, unsure what to say next. But in the hush of that small room, they both felt the crackling tension of everything left unsaid. Naomi sat on the edge of the bed, nervously picking at a loose thread on her sweatshirt. Adrian paced in front of her, running a hand through his hair. There were so many questions he wanted to ask, so many apologies he needed to make. She finally broke the silence. "Where do we go from here?" Adrian sank down in the chair opposite her. "I don't have much left. No mansion, no big business deals." He gave a hollow laugh. "I barely have enough money to pay for this room." Naomi's eyes flickered with concern. "I never cared about the money, Adrian. It was never about that for me." He nodded, remembering the contract they had signed, the vow they made to keep things simple, how far they had come from that cynical agreement. "I know," he said, "but that's not the problem. The problem is the people who want to keep us apart. People who hate you for your skin color, or who think you're beneath me, or who want to use you to hurt me. I can't let them do that anymore." Naomi's voice trembled. "I can't keep running from them either. I'm tired of being told I don't belong." Adrian leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Naomi, do you trust me?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I do. Even after all that happened, I trust you more than anyone." "Then let me try to fix this," he said. "Not by going back to that old life, but by clearing our names. I have proof Roger was the one who destroyed the company with fake deals. If I can get him to confess or face legal charges, maybe we can bury the rumors that you took my fortune." Naomi bit her lip. "You'd still be bankrupt, though, and the bigots would still whisper in your ear." Adrian tried to smile. "I can live without money, but I can't live without you." She looked down, tears threatening again. "I only want your happiness." He reached across and gently took her hand. "That's all I want for you too. We'll find a way. Together." They spent the next hour in whispered conversation, sharing every detail of what happened after she left Ho. Adrian discovered Roger's secrets, how he found the photos, and the hooded figure at the pier. Naomi told him about the threats she received, about how she ended up in this small town, living day to day and hoping she would not be found by the wrong people. The sky outside darkened. Streetlights blinked on, casting a dim glow through the tattered curtains. Adrian finally stood up, stretching his tired limbs. "It's been a long day. We both need rest." He hesitated. "Will you stay here? With me?" Naomi nodded, a hint of a sad smile on her face. "Yes, I'll stay." That night, Adrian and Naomi shared the bed in room 4. They lay awake, facing each other, hands intertwined. A single lamp on the nightstand cast warm light across their faces. After so many months apart, they did not want to waste a moment. Adrian gently brushed a strand of Naomi's hair back. "I'm sorry," he said again, voice breaking. "I'm sorry for all the times I didn't protect you from hateful words. I'm sorry for letting my pride push you away." Naomi squeezed his hand. "We both made mistakes," she whispered. "We were caught up in a world too big and cruel. But we found each other again, that's what matters." They leaned in, and for the first time in what felt like forever, their lips met in a tender kiss. It was not like the contract kisses they once shared. This was real, filled with longing, relief, and the promise of hope. As they drifted to sleep, lulled by each other's warmth, Adrian felt something that had eluded him for a long time: peace. But outside, in the motel parking lot, a sleek black car pulled in behind Adrian's old sedan. The driver's window rolled down a crack, and a figure watched the glow from room 4's window. A camera lens glinted under the weak streetlight, snapping silent pictures of the two silhouettes in the room. Adrian woke early the next morning, feeling Naomi's gentle breath on his shoulder. The tension in his chest eased just a bit. He watched her sleep for a moment, remembering the countless mornings he used to find her in the mansion kitchen, brightening his day with a soft kiss. He slid out of bed quietly and stepped outside for fresh air. He expected to see the usual emptiness of the motel lot, but instead he spotted the black car parked a few spaces away. He froze. There was no one inside now, or at least it looked empty. His heart quickened with alarm. Just then, he heard a soft cough. He turned to see Tina, the motel clerk, standing near the office door lighting a cigarette. She gave him a pointed look. "Saw that car pull in late last night," she said. "Driver didn't check in, just sat there. Left for a bit, then came back." Adrian's gut twisted with worry. "Thanks for letting me know," he said. Tina shrugged. "You asked me about a friend. I figured you two finally found each other. Just be careful. This place has enough trouble without strangers prowling around." Adrian nodded his thanks and returned to the room. Naomi was awake now, sitting on the edge of the bed, arms wrapped around herself as if she felt a chill. "You okay?" she asked, noticing the worry on his face. He closed the door behind him. "There's a black car in the lot, might be watching us. I need to see who it is." Naomi frowned. "Roger? I don't know," Adrian said, kneeling in front of her. "But if it's someone he sent, we need to be ready." Naomi swallowed. "I don't want anyone else getting hurt." He gave her a reassuring look. "We'll be fine. I won't let anyone harm you again." Around midday, Adrian walked outside, pretending to head to his car. He paced around, hoping the driver of the black car would emerge. Finally, the door clicked open, and a tall man stepped out, wearing dark sunglasses and a black jacket. Adrian recognized him, the same private investigator he had hired months ago to find Naomi. But something was off. The man carried a small camera and looked startled when he saw Adrian approach. "What are you doing here?" Adrian demanded. The investigator's expression hardened. "I should ask you the same question. You hired me to find Miss Naomi, but you went off on your own." Adrian scoffed. "I stopped hearing from you once I went bankrupt. Figured you bailed." The man shook his head. "I was paid off by someone else to stop searching for Naomi. They told me to back off. So I did. But I'm here now for a different client." Adrian's blood ran cold. Different client? The investigator glanced at the motel window, where Naomi was peeking through the curtain. "Someone wants photos of her. Proof she's alive and well. That's all I know." Anger burned in Adrian's chest. "Who hired you?" The investigator did not answer directly. "Look, I have nothing personal against you or Naomi. I'm just doing a job. But a piece of advice? If you want to keep her safe, get out of town. The person who hired me has deep pockets and a nasty reach." Adrian clenched his fists. "Roger, it has to be Roger." The investigator shrugged. "Name might be different. But yeah, that would be my guess. I got enough photos. I'm leaving now." Adrian stepped forward. "Give me the camera." The investigator backed away. "No can do, pal. This is my livelihood." His gaze softened a little. "I'm not a thug. I won't do anything but hand over these pictures. But whoever hired me might send someone else. Worse than me." Adrian wanted to punch something, to lash out, but he held himself in check. The investigator slipped back into the black car, engine roaring to life. Adrian stood there, helpless. The car sped away, kicking up dust on the gravel road. When Adrian returned to room 4, Naomi looked shaken. "He was taking photos of me," she whispered. "They'll know where I am." Adrian put his arms around her. "We'll leave. We can't stay here." Naomi nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she said again, voice trembling. "I keep dragging you into danger." He kissed her forehead. "Number, this is our fight now, and we face it together." They packed what few belongings Naomi had in a small suitcase. Adrian gathered his own things, which barely filled a backpack. Within the hour, they were loading up his car. Tina, the motel clerk, watched them from the office door. She did not ask any questions, but she gave Naomi a gentle nod of understanding. Just as Adrian was about to start the car, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. He hesitated, then answered. A distorted voice spoke. "Running again, Adrian?" His heart tightened. He recognized the threatening tone. "Roger," he said, voice cold. A cruel laugh came through the static. "Why are you still protecting her? She's the reason you lost everything. Save yourself the trouble. Hand her over, or better yet, let her run away alone. You can still rebuild your empire without her." Adrian clenched the steering wheel. "You're pathetic. Naomi did nothing. You destroyed the company with your dirty deals." The voice scoffed. You always were naive. Look at you now, scraping by in cheap motels. Give it up, Adrian. This is your last warning. The line went dead. Adrian exhaled, forcing himself to stay calm. Naomi touched his hand, sensing his rage. It was him, wasn't it? Adrian nodded. He knows we're here. Naomi bowed her head. Where will we go? Someplace he can't find us, Adrian said, trying to sound sure, though he had no idea where that might be. First, we need to talk to the authorities. The real ones, not crooked lawyers. We have to get Roger arrested. Naomi looked at him, unsure. How? Adrian gripped the wheel, his mind racing. The photos, the faked contracts there. Has to be a way to prove his guilt. We'll go to the SEC or the FBI. It's risky, but it might be the only way to clear your name and keep you safe. Naomi swallowed, nodding. I trust you. With that, Adrian started the engine and they left the Rosewood Inn behind, heading onto the open road once again. The sun was high and the air outside was warm, but inside the car, a chill of uncertainty hung over them. They had no plan other than to keep driving, keep each other safe, and find a way to bring Roger down. By nightfall, they reached a bigger town and checked into a modest hotel under fake names. Adrian used what little money he had left. Fear lingered in their eyes. They knew Roger might be close behind. The next morning, Adrian dug out the old laptop he kept in his trunk. He managed to log into an account that still had digital copies of certain contracts and emails. Naomi made coffee from the small pot in the room as Adrian hunched over the screen, eyes darting across lines of data. He found evidence of wire transfers from Roger's shell companies into a fraudulent tech fund. Adrian felt a surge of hope. If I can show this to law enforcement, maybe it'll be enough, he murmured. Naomi looked over his shoulder, reading the data. It's a start, she said softly. They decided to reach out to Daniel Morris, an old friend of Adrian's father who was also a well-known attorney. Adrian had avoided him, fearing he was too loyal to the old system. But now, he had no choice. Daniel answered on the third ring. He sounded surprised to hear Adrian's voice, but agreed to meet in a nearby city. I have something that might help you, Daniel said mysteriously. I've been following the news about your downfall and suspected Roger was behind it. Adrian felt relief flood him. Thank you, Daniel. We'll meet you tomorrow. After hanging up, Adrian turned to Naomi. He saw both fear and determination in her eyes. We're going to fix this, he promised, reaching for her hand. Naomi squeezed his fingers. Together, she agreed. They drove to the next city, a bustling place compared to the small town they had left. Daniel had arranged to meet them at a quiet restaurant on the outskirts. Adrian and Naomi arrived early, nerves on edge. They chose a corner table and waited. Soon, a tall, silver-haired man in a tailored suit walked in Daniel Morris. He spotted Adrian and approached with a serious expression. After greetings, they settled into the booth, speaking in hushed tones. I always suspected something was wrong with Roger, Daniel said, leaning forward. I went through your father's old files and found letters suggesting Roger had been embezzling small amounts for years. Your father either did not notice or did not care enough to stop him. But once you took over, Roger got bolder. Adrian handed Daniel a flash drive. Here are the documents I have. Bank transfers, emails, all linking Roger to fraudulent deals. Daniel nodded, slipping the drive into his jacket pocket. This could be enough to open a case. I have contacts in the FBI. If we handle this carefully, Roger will be indicted. Naomi chewed her lip. What about me? People still think I stole Adrian's fortune. Daniel tapped the table. Once the investigation starts, it'll be clear that the money was siphoned off through Roger's networks. With the right media coverage, your name can be cleared. Adrian exhaled, relief flowing through him. Thank you, Daniel. We can't afford a lawyer right now. Daniel offered a sad smile. Your father helped me once. Consider this my repayment. He glanced around, lowering his voice. But you need to be cautious. Roger is dangerous. He has powerful connections and may try to silence you. They left the restaurant with a spark of hope, though fear still coiled in their stomachs. Daniel promised to contact them soon with the next steps. Adrian and Naomi returned to their car, hearts pounding. They might finally see justice done. That evening, Adrian and Naomi checked into another motel, paying cash under new names. They locked the door, triple-checked the windows, and sat on the bed holding hands. Outside, neon lights from a nearby sign flickered against the thin curtains. We're one step closer, Adrian said softly. Naomi leaned her head on his shoulder. I want a life without fear, she whispered. A life where we can be together openly, without judgment, without threats. Adrian wrapped an arm around her. I promise, we'll have that life someday. We just have to see this through. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then Naomi's lips curved into a small smile. She remembered the routine they had once shared. We haven't done our daily kiss in a while, she said, tears forming at the corner of her eyes, tears of both sadness and longing. Adrian's gaze softened. He leaned in, kissing her gently. When their lips parted, they both laughed quietly, as if relieved to feel some spark of normalcy. Their love, bruised and tested by the cruel outside world, still burned with a fierce light. Days passed, and Daniel updated them on the case. The FBI showed interest in the evidence. Charges against Rogers seemed inevitable. Adrian and Naomi dared to hope that soon they could stop running. One cloudy afternoon, as they waited in the motel for Daniel's call, there was a sudden knock at the door. Naomi and Adrian exchanged worried looks. He approached the door cautiously. "Who is it?" he asked. "It's me, Daniel," came the reply. "I have news." Adrian glanced through the peephole, then unlocked the door. Daniel stepped in, looking pale. "We got him," he said, voice strained. "Roger's been arrested. The FBI found all the evidence they needed. It's over," Naomi gasped, pressing her hands to her mouth. Adrian felt his knees go weak with relief. He thanked Daniel, who nodded, but there was a strange tension in his eyes. "There's something else," Daniel said, closing the door behind him. "After Roger was taken in, he started naming names. Turns out, there's an entire group who profited from his deals, including some law enforcement officials. They might not go quietly. There could be backlash." Adrian felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What does that mean for us?" Daniel sighed. "It means you two should lay low until the indictments are final. The FBI is offering witness protection if you want it. You've made enemies, Adrian. These are powerful people who do not want their secrets exposed." Naomi's hand shook in Adrian's grip. She looked at him, eyes full of worry. "Witness protection?" she echoed. "We'd have to start all over. New names, new lives." Adrian swallowed hard. "But we'd be together," he said. He turned to Daniel. "Is there any other way?" Daniel hesitated. "You could try to fight them in public, but it may drag on for years, with threats, intimidation, maybe worse. I think witness protection is the safest path." Silence filled the small motel room. Adrian glanced around at the faded walls, the single lamp casting long shadows on the floor. He looked at Naomi, remembering every trial they had endured: racism, betrayal, bankruptcy, and heartbreak. All he wanted now was to keep her safe and hold onto the love they had found. He squeezed Naomi's hand gently, searching her eyes. "I'll do whatever you want. If you want to disappear together, we will. If you want to stand and fight, I'll stand with you." Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. She turned to Daniel. "Do we have time to think about it?" Daniel nodded. "A little, but not much." Naomi looked back at Adrian. "You said once you'd give up everything for me. Will you give up your name, your past?" Adrian brushed a tear from her cheek. "I already did, in a way. That old life died the moment you left. All I need is you." Naomi closed her eyes, releasing a long, shaking breath. "Then let's do it," she whispered. "Let's start over, together." Adrian pulled her into a tender embrace, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and hope. Daniel watched, looking both relieved and saddened by what they were about to lose. Outside, thunder rumbled, and a sudden, rain began to pelt the motel roof. The three of them stood in that tiny room, knowing their next steps would change everything forever. But in the midst of the storm, Adrian and Naomi felt a flicker of lighter promise of a future where they could live free from hate, greed, and fear. The final choice they faced was steeped in uncertainty, yet they knew one truth above all else: they would face it together. Hello, wonderful friends and followers. I'm reaching out because I have a big goal in mind: hitting 1,000 subscribers. It's a milestone that will help our community grow and allow me to share more exciting content with you. Every single subscriber makes a huge difference and brings me one step closer to achieving this dream.